You think you know how Hollywood legends say their final goodbye? Think again. For some of the biggest stars of the Golden Age, death was just another act. A twist in a script even the tabloids couldn't dream up. What if I told you some of your favorite icons were buried in secret, vanished at sea, or laid to rest in places so bizarre they still spark wild rumors? Ever wondered what really happens when the curtain falls for good? Stick around. These endings are anything but ordinary. Charlie Chaplin. You'd expect the final resting place of cinema's most beloved clown to be peaceful, maybe even a little quirky. But for Charlie Chaplin, the last act was pure Hollywood noir. After his gentle passing in Switzerland on Christmas Day, 1977, Chaplin was buried in a quiet village cemetery, a setting as understated as the man himself. But 3 months later, the world woke up to a scandal. Chaplin's entire coffin had vanished. Grave robbers, real-life villains, had dug up his remains and made off into the night, triggering a global manhunt and headlines that read like a lost Hitchcock script. Chaplin's widow, Una, was hit with ransom calls demanding a king's sum for his safe return, $600,000 or else. Swiss police, channeling all the procedural drama of a Cold War thriller, tapped phones and staked out hundreds of pay booths. The press went wild. For weeks, the world didn't know if this was a tasteless prank or a real-life crime saga. The twist? The thieves, two desperate mechanics, were caught during a botched ransom handoff. Chaplin's coffin turned up buried in a nearby cornfield, almost like a punchline too bizarre for a silent film. But the strangeness didn't end there. This time, Chaplin's grave was armored in concrete, forever protected from would-be body snatchers and fans gone too far. If you visit today, you'd never guess that beneath that humble marker lies the scene of one of Hollywood's weirdest true crimes. For Chaplin, the curtain never really falls. His afterlife drama just kept the spotlight burning. Would any other star's body be worth a global chase? Only Charlie could pull off a plot twist like this. Marlene Dietrich. How does an international icon find peace when she never really belonged anywhere? Marlene Dietrich, the smoky-voiced queen of cool, managed to have 2 graves and a legacy so tangled, even the historians can't agree on where her spirit truly rests. When Dietrich died in Paris in 1992, her death alone ignited controversy. American by citizenship, German by birth, Parisian by choice. She'd publicly rejected Nazi Germany and remade herself in every city she touched. So, where do you bury a woman who belonged to the world but claimed by none? Her daughter chose Berlin, a city Marlene had famously vowed never to return to, and a country that had both exiled and idolized her. There, in a modest family cemetery surrounded by ordinary Berliners, Dietrich was laid to rest, as far from Hollywood marble as you can get, but the plot thickens. Parisians refused to let her go, building an unofficial shrine at her former apartment, turning her block into an unlicensed memorial site. Meanwhile, Dietrich's will dictated that her legendary costumes and mementos could only be displayed in Berlin, and only after reunification. One last bit of drama from a woman who never stopped shaping her own narrative. Fans, divided as her ashes, now split their pilgrimage between Berlin's obscure grave and a Parisian doorstep. Is she a German legend, a Parisian muse, or Hollywood royalty? Maybe the answer is all and none. Dietrich's story proves you can be everywhere and nowhere at once, even after death. John Barrymore. If Hollywood legends are made, not born, John Barrymore was proof that they never really die. The original great profile was the life of every party, even after he was gone. When Barrymore died in 1942, friends and family prepared for a dignified send-off in Philadelphia. But this was Barrymore, and dignity never made for a good story. Legend has it, a notorious crew, Errol Flynn, Raoul Walsh, and W.C. Fields, pulled off a caper that's since become a staple of Hollywood myth. What did they do? Well, according to the most outrageous accounts, these boozy pranksters bribed mortuary staff, borrowed Barrymore's body, and staged a posthumous poker game with his corpse, propping him up at Flynn's house for one last night of riotous celebration. There are photos, there are witnesses, there's endless debate. Did it happen? Walsh swore to it. Flynn winked at it. Barrymore's ghost probably raised a glass. Eventually, the family buried him in the Philadelphia family plot, but the legend wouldn't die. Years later, Barrymore's son moved his father to a more befitting tomb. For decades, rumors flew that the casket was empty, that the body had been cremated, or that the whole thing was just a Hollywood inside joke. Either way, Barrymore's legacy, part tragic, part comedy, was sealed. If your friends never prop you up for one last round after you're gone, did you even live? In Hollywood, the answer might just be not like Barrymore. Bela Lugosi. Typecasting is a curse, but what if you wear it to the grave? Bela Lugosi, the man whose hypnotic gaze turned Dracula into pop culture legend, was so inextricably linked to his vampire role that he was buried in full costume, literally. When Lugosi died in 1956, his career was long past its peak, but his persona was immortal. His family, with what you might call a flair for the dramatic, buried him in one of the original Dracula capes from Universal's 1931 masterpiece. That's right. Lugosi's final exit was pure theater, a star going down with his costume. Some say it was his wish, others say it was the family's call. Either way, Hollywood lost a piece of film history, an actual Dracula cape, sealed forever in the crypt with its master. And the location? Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, a Catholic cemetery, ironically, for the world's favorite undead villain. The funeral was modest, with Hollywood's A-list noticeably absent, but hundreds of fans arrived, many dressed as vampires, forming a surreal procession of mourning Draculas. The legacy, Lugosi's grave, became a shrine for horror fans, goths, and vampire obsessives, drawn to the idea that somewhere 6 feet down, the real Count Dracula still wears his cape. Was Lugosi cursed by his own legend, or did he outsmart it by owning the myth until the very end? Only Hollywood could stage a send-off this theatrical. Jane Mansfield. Jane Mansfield was always larger than life, and apparently larger than death, too. After her tragic, much mythologized car accident in 1967, you'd expect Hollywood to give her the star treatment, marble, columns, maybe a few spotlights. Instead, her grave is pure pop art, a massive pink heart-shaped stone in a small-town Pennsylvania cemetery, surrounded by working-class gravestones. It's so Jane, big, bold, and impossible to ignore. But the story gets weirder. For years, fans whispered that Mansfield had been decapitated in the crash, a grisly urban legend that refuses to die. Others insisted her remains were secretly smuggled to Los Angeles, and that her hometown grave was just for show. None of it's true, but that hasn't stopped the wild rumors, or the ghost hunters who claim her grave is haunted by perfume, whispers, and fleeting blonde apparitions. Mansfield's pink monument reads, "We live to love you more each day." Visitors leave lipstick kisses, pink feathers, and heart-shaped trinkets. There's even a roadside memorial at her death site in Louisiana, now a pilgrimage spot for the devoted. No Hollywood Walk of Fame, no golden crypt, just a candy-colored, heart-shaped stone in the middle of nowhere, as eccentric as the woman herself. Mansfield's final plot twist? She turned her own grave into the ultimate fan shrine, and the legend only keeps growing. Steve McQueen. When Steve McQueen, the king of cool, checked out, he didn't settle for any cemetery's marble and grass. Nope. His final ride was more legendary than a funeral. After losing his fight with cancer in 1980, McQueen's body was cremated, and his ashes were given a literal send-off. They were scattered from a vintage World War II biplane over the Pacific Ocean near Santa Paula, California. No grave, no shrine, not even a marker. Just the wind, the waves, and the open sky he loved. That's the McQueen spirit. Always moving, always untethered, never giving the press or the public a place to pin him down. Friends say he wanted to avoid becoming just another celebrity tomb, so the only official memorial is a tiny, hidden marker at a private airstrip miles from Hollywood. But McQueen fans are nothing if not dedicated. Every year, a handful of them book biplane rides from the Santa Paula airport, flying the same path as his ashes, paying tribute with a moment of silence high above the clouds. His is a grave you can't visit, a place you can't quite reach. In a town obsessed with legacy, Steve McQueen's final escape proves that sometimes the coolest move is disappearing into legend. If you want to pay your respects, you'll have to take to the skies. Jean Harlo. Hollywood's original platinum blonde, Jean Harlo, died young and unexpectedly, her life and death both tinged with tragedy. But what happened after her last breath is the stuff of mausoleum myth. Instead of a simple grave, Harlo's mother shelled out for an elaborate, triple-sealed bronze casket, costing a small fortune even by today's standards. Then, she was placed in a private marble mausoleum at Forest Lawn, Glendale. What makes it truly strange? No one, not even close family, is allowed inside the mausoleum. It's locked, sealed, and perpetually filled with fresh flowers thanks to a trust fund Harlo's mother set up. For years, cemetery staff would sneak in to replace the bouquets, but the crypt itself remains a Hollywood fortress. The public only gets to see the outside. Rumor has it Harlo was buried with a slip of paper bearing the name of her great love, William Powell, but no one can confirm it. Even in death, Harlo is untouchable, separated from her adoring fans by layers of stone and legend. Her name doesn't even appear on the exterior, just a simple inscription for our baby. If you want a symbol of old Hollywood's mix of glamour, heartbreak, and secrecy, Harlo's untouchable tomb is it. Rudolph Valentino. When silent screen heartthrob Rudolph Valentino died in 1926, mass hysteria gripped Hollywood. But the chaos didn't end at his funeral. Valentino's estate was such a mess that friends had to borrow a crypt for him at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, planning to move him once a proper mausoleum could be built. Spoiler, it never happened. His temporary tomb became permanent, a borrowed bit of marble for a borrowed legend. But here's where things get weird. Every year since his death, a mysterious lady in black appears, leaving a single red rose at his crypt. No one knows who she really was. Some say there were several. Some claim it started as a publicity stunt. Still, the tradition continues, and the tomb draws thousands of fans and ghost hunters each year. Valentino's resting place is modest, almost anonymous, just a simple plaque for the biggest romantic idol of his age. Rumors of hauntings, secret passages, and wild parties swirl around the site, feeding the legend. In Hollywood, even a borrowed tomb can become a permanent stage, especially if the audience never stops coming. If you're looking for proof that stars never truly die, Valentino's crypt is Exhibit A. Jimmy Durante. Comedy legend Jimmy Durante ended every show with a mysterious sign-off. "Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are." After he died in 1980, fans finally learned the truth. Mrs. Calabash was his first wife, Jean, who died decades before him. Durante, ever the romantic, had bought 2 plots side by side at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City so he could rest beside her. But the twist. After Jean passed, Jimmy remarried and spent his final years with his second wife, Margie. When it came time for his own burial, he chose loyalty to his first love, leaving Margie to be buried elsewhere. His grave bears the simplest of inscriptions. No career accolades, just the one and only, and his name shared with Jean. To make things even weirder, legend has it that Durante once joked about having his famously huge nose buried separately. Cemetery staff say fans asked about the nose plot for years. In the end, it's a classic Durante send-off. Sentimental, understated, a little bit quirky, and completely unique. For a man whose public persona always hid a tender heart, his final resting place is the ultimate private joke. Mae West. Mae West, Hollywood's bawdiest wit, built her own legend brick by brick, and picked out her own final address decades before she needed it. West bought a crypt at Brooklyn's Cypress Hills Abbey Mausoleum in the 1930s, despite having long since abandoned New York for the California sun. She never visited the mausoleum, not once, not even out of curiosity. When she died in 1980, West's remains had to be shipped across the country to her untouched crypt. No star-studded memorial in LA, no elaborate Hollywood send-off. Her grave is shockingly plain for such a flamboyant star. Just her name and dates, no quotes, no diamonds, not even a joke. Family lore says she wanted modesty in death, but nobody really buys it. Her legendary collection of costumes, scripts, and jewels, locked in storage for decades. For fans hoping for a shrine, Mae West's grave is almost a letdown, unlike everything else she ever did. Maybe that's the point. Sometimes the greatest showwoman of her age knew how to leave 'em wanting more, even from beyond the grave. Humphrey Bogart. Even in death, Humphrey Bogart had a punchline. The king of cool, Hollywood's ultimate tough guy, wasn't buried under marble or with a Hollywood sign overhead. Instead, Bogey's ashes ended up in a surprisingly understated bronze urn at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. Here's where it gets weird. Engraved on that urn is a tiny whistle, a nod to his famous line to Lauren Bacall in To Have and Have Not. You know how to whistle, don't you? Just put your lips together and blow. But Bogart's afterlife isn't all romance and iconic movie quotes. He didn't want a big fuss or a tourist attraction. Rumor has it that the family originally planned a quiet burial at sea, but the logistics of Bogey's fan base and Hollywood's love for memorializing its own got in the way. Now his resting place is a pilgrimage for cinephiles and hopeless romantics who want to leave behind a whistle, a rose, or a pack of lucky strikes. And while the cemetery is crowded with movie royalty, Bogart's plot is almost humble. No statue, no fanfare, just that inside joke for those who know where to look. If you ever visit, bring a whistle. It's what Bogey would have wanted. In the land of over-the-top endings, Bogart's strange, understated grave proves that sometimes the most legendary stars know how to keep it cool right up to the credits. Errol Flynn. For a man whose life was one non-stop scandal and adventure, Errol Flynn's burial is shockingly tame and strangely disappointing. The original Hollywood bad boy, who once declared he'd rather be buried at sea or on his beloved Jamaican estate, ended up in a simple crypt at Forest Lawn, Glendale, far from his dreams of a wild send-off. What makes Flynn's grave strange isn't so much where he ended up, but how he didn't get what he wanted. Friends say his will called for his ashes to be scattered somewhere, where the girls are pretty and the rum flows, but studio pressure and family drama landed him in Hollywood's most buttoned-up cemetery. The result? A modest, nondescript plot for a man who practically invented the Hollywood riot. Legend has it that friends toasted Flynn one last time at the graveside, sneaking in flasks of whiskey and rum, defying cemetery rules in his honor. Fans today still leave little bottles and saucy notes. In the end, Errol Flynn's strange burial isn't about the location. It's about a life and death that could never quite be tamed. Even in the afterlife, Hollywood doesn't always grant its wildest stars their last wish. Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood's grave is less a place of rest and more a magnet for conspiracy. After her mysterious death by drowning in 1981, a tragedy still debated by everyone from internet sleuths to homicide detectives, she was buried in the Westwood Village Memorial Park alongside other Hollywood elite. But here's where it gets strange. Wood's crypt is tucked away, nearly hidden, and constantly adorned with fresh flowers, notes, and sometimes cryptic messages. Fans say her grave feels haunted, charged with the unsolved drama of her final hours. There are stories of people hearing whispers or sensing her presence, especially on the anniversary of her death. The placement itself is odd, nestled near Marilyn Monroe, Truman Capote, and other troubled legends, as if the cemetery's a gathering of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. What makes Wood's resting place truly bizarre is the ongoing police investigations and wild rumors that swirl around her. Even her epitaph, beloved daughter, wife, mother, sister, and friend, feels both touching and unfinished. In a town obsessed with closure, Natalie Wood's grave offers anything but. If you believe Hollywood's ghosts never sleep, this is one plot you might want to visit at midnight. Lon Chaney, the man of 1,000 faces, took his greatest secret to the grave, literally. When Chaney died in 1930, he was one of the most celebrated and enigmatic actors of his era, but his burial was the very opposite of Hollywood glitz. Instead of a marble monument or elaborate mausoleum, Chaney's family chose to keep his final resting place completely unmarked at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. To this day, fans wander the grounds trying to locate the exact spot, guided only by clues, rumors, and internet forums. There's no plaque, no headstone, nothing to tip off the casual visitor. It's become a kind of pilgrimage for horror buffs and film historians, the ultimate scavenger hunt among the tombstones. Why the secrecy? Some say Chaney, a master of transformation, wanted to disappear one last time. Others say it was to prevent vandalism or unwanted attention. The result is a grave as elusive and mysterious as the man himself. In the end, Lon Chaney's resting place is the final mask, one no one else can ever find. For the king of disguise, it's the perfect disappearing act. Marilyn Monroe. If you thought Marilyn Monroe would have a quiet spot to herself, think again. The most famous blonde in history was laid to rest in a modest, pink marbled crypt at Westwood Village Memorial Park. But Monroe's grave is anything but peaceful. Her resting place has become a global shrine. Her crypt is stained with lipstick kisses, covered in flowers, and surrounded by tributes from fans, admirers, and even the occasional conspiracy theorist. The plot thickens. The crypt right next to Monroe's has changed hands for millions at auction, literally the most expensive address in the cemetery. Rumor has it Hugh Hefner bought the neighboring spot just so he could spend eternity with her. Others have vied for nearby spaces, turning Monroe's resting place into the hottest real estate in the afterlife. There's even talk of paranormal happenings, sightings, cold spots, and strange dreams reported by visitors. But the real mystery? Despite the chaos, Monroe's grave marker is small and simple, as if she herself wanted to fade into the background. In the end, the legend of Marilyn Monroe lives on louder than ever, her strange burial spot now the most visited and the most mythologized of them all, Elizabeth Taylor. Only Elizabeth Taylor could make being late to her own funeral sound like a power move. When the violet-eyed legend died in 2011, she left explicit instructions. Her funeral was to begin at least 15 minutes after the scheduled time, so in her words, she'd be late to her own funeral. But the weirdness didn't end with the schedule. Taylor is interred at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale in a rare multi-faith mausoleum. This is Hollywood's sacred ground for legends, but Taylor's plot is tucked away in a private alcove, hidden behind white marble doors. No crowds, no walk-ups, just the woman herself, a handful of family, and security so tight you'd think she was guarding the Hope Diamond one last time. For decades, Taylor dodged the press, the paparazzi, and even stalkers. In death, she finally got the privacy she craved. But the secrecy and exclusivity have only fueled the mystique. Fans leave flowers by the gates or slip notes through cracks in the marble. Some even say they hear faint echoes of laughter or catch a whiff of her favorite perfume drifting down the corridors. Taylor's burial is a reminder that sometimes even Hollywood royalty can choose how the final scene plays out. No gold statues, no lines of autograph hounds, just a locked door, a late arrival, and a legacy that no mausoleum could ever contain. If you want a Hollywood ending, you'll have to settle for a glimpse of the marble and your own imagination. Joan Crawford. You'd think the star who defined Hollywood glamour would get a resting place to match. Instead, Joan Crawford, screen legend, style icon, and the most infamous mother in film history, was laid to rest in a modest crypt at Ferncliff Mausoleum in Hartsdale, New York. But the drama didn't stop with her final curtain call. Here's where it gets strange. Her grave became a lightning rod for fans, critics, and her own family. Crawford's will famously cut out two of her children for reasons which are well known to them, fueling endless rumors and bitter visits. Some fans report feeling chills or even fainting when approaching her crypt. Others say they've seen lipstick marks mysteriously appear on the cold marble, a nod to the thousands of kisses she received in life, or maybe a wink from the afterlife. There's a sense of unfinished business hovering over her grave. Fans of Mommy Dearest leave wire hangers or handwritten notes, part tribute, part protest, part camp spectacle. And while Crawford's marker is understated, her legend is anything but. In the end, the real drama was never on the silver screen. It was waiting in the family plot. Joan Crawford's burial is proof that Hollywood's scandals don't always end with the credits. Sometimes they just move to a quieter stage. Clark Gable. For the king of Hollywood, you'd expect a grand mausoleum, or at least a star-studded send-off. But Clark Gable, the leading man who made millions swoon, chose love over legacy. After his death in 1960, Gable was buried in Forest Lawn Memorial Park, not in a solo monument, but beside Carole Lombard, the great love of his life, at her family's plot. Here's what makes it strange. Lombard had died almost 20 years earlier in a plane crash, a tragedy that broke Gable's heart, and, friends say, changed him forever. Gable's new wife, Kay, honored his wish to be laid next to Lombard, despite protests from his own family and Hollywood insiders who wanted something more fitting. Their crypt is simple, unassuming, and overshadowed by others more ornate, but for true romantics, it's the most touching plot in the cemetery. Every year, fans leave roses and love letters at their shared resting place, celebrating a Hollywood romance that outlived the gossip columns. For a man worshipped by millions, Gable's final wish was surprisingly intimate. An eternity with the only woman he said ever truly knew him. In the end, even Hollywood's greatest heartthrob chose love over legend. Walt Disney. Ask anyone on the street and they'll swear Walt Disney's frozen body lies hidden beneath Disneyland, waiting to be revived. The truth? It's much weirder and less sci-fi. Walt Disney is actually interred at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, in a private family garden far from the public eye. Here's the twist. The Disney family plot is so low-key, it's practically invisible. No castle, no Mickey Mouse statue, not even a single cartoon hint. It's tucked away behind hedges, marked only by a discreet plaque listing several family members. The privacy is so strict, most Disney fans never even find it, fueling all those persistent, cryogenically frozen rumors that just won't die. For years, tourists and conspiracy theorists have snuck around, trying to find the grave or spot secret Disney symbols. They always come up empty-handed. Even in death, Disney's greatest magic trick is keeping the world guessing. If you go searching for the frozen founder, you'll find nothing but flowers and silence. His last, greatest illusion. In a town built on fantasy, Walt's real resting place is the one thing that remains off-limits. Buster Keaton. Buster Keaton, the silent comedy genius with a stone face and a daredevil's soul, could have claimed any monument in Hollywood. Instead, he vanished in plain sight. When Keaton died in 1966, he was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills, marked by one of the simplest headstones you'll ever see. No statue, no slapstick, just Buster Keaton. And if you blink, you'll miss it. It's almost as if Keaton planned one final gag, a grave so nondescript you have to look twice to believe it's really him. Devoted fans make the pilgrimage, often leaving old hats, toy trains, or black and white snapshots at the marker. There are stories of people breaking into spontaneous slapstick tributes or quietly reenacting a Keaton stunt for the cameras. Keaton's burial proves you don't need a grand stage to leave a mark. In a town where everyone's desperate to be remembered, he chose to quietly fade into the background, his films doing the talking. If you want to find Buster Keaton, you'd better look carefully. He's still hiding in plain sight, making the world laugh, even from the grave. So, what did we learn from Hollywood's strangest final curtain calls? Maybe that stardom doesn't end at the grave. Sometimes, it just gets weirder. From stolen corpses to secret mausoleums, these icons kept the drama rolling long after the credits faded. Which burial blew your mind, or which legend would you dare visit at midnight? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe for more wild Hollywood deep dives, and remember, in Tinseltown, the real plot twists happen 6 feet under. See you in the next reel.